Hi everyone, so this is our Zwift Racing League EMEA East Division 4 Cat C race, which took place last night over the whole lot of lava. 3 laps of the climb, pretty brutal race, and so this is our kind of starting of the race. Plan was just to stick with the front group really as long as possible, try and get up that first climb in the top 10. Thought process was that the first lap would probably be the quickest one up that climb, so points were there available for the first 10 over the line and the first fastest over the line. Couldn't see many people getting the fastest times over lap 2 and lap 3, so the aim was to get there as many of our team in the top 10 over that first climb. So we start out the race, pretty easy pace to start off with, quite comfortable. I feel all of our group really in the top front pack, no one really splitting off. I don't think many people got caught out from the start. It wasn't too fast, and we continued all the way to the climb really. Those are my kind of front of the pack leading, trying to get there. Just get my obligatory first place screenshot as always, and just make sure all as Danny Appleton was one of our teammates just sitting in there, Jamie Peel's in there somewhere, Paul Birch kicking around in the middle of the pack, and Steve is sitting in there somewhere, but I seemed to disappear all race, never knew where he was, and come the end of the race he finished ahead of me somehow, no idea where he was. So as we start the climb, the group's still together at the front of the pack, sitting around 20th, 25th, something like that. And this is where it starts to the race starts to take shape. My tactics were very much it's a long climb, let's sit in, keep it comfortable, keep the cadence high, try and keep the watts as high as possible, but in a comfortable position, and try and stay with the pack. But as we get into the climb, you can see it starts to string out, the watts are starting to kick up, and I end up at the back of the pack. So as the climb continues, I'm kicking out 3 watts, and that's quite comfortable. I can sit at that no problem, hopefully keeping in touching distance of the lead group, and then riders start coming past me and one of my teammates, Paul Birch. So I'm thinking, well, Paul's in here with me, that's not too much of a problem, but Paul normally finishes last in these races, and it probably should have been the kick in the backside I needed to see Paul coming past me, to then kick on and grab the rest of that group. Paul actually has the right idea and sees the group getting away from us, and then kicks up the watts and bridges the gap eventually, whereas I maintain my steady 3.2 watts per kilo and just drop off, and it ends up with just the 3 of us sitting in there. And the hope was that on the flat sections that I'd be able to bridge that gap, but it didn't come to fruition. So it was the 3 of us set out for the rest of the race. It was really good having Graham Trigg from one of the other teams there, keeping pace with me, managing to just share some workload up the hills, and we were going together for the majority of that first into second lap, working together up the hills and trying to catch the next riders. So the plan was really just to focus on the next rider in front, bridge those gaps, catch him, pass him, focus on the next one. So as we get to the second climb, Graham and I are still pretty much there together with a Polish rider, and we work together passing a few riders up the hill, and we managed to drop the other Polish guy before his other teammate caught us. But as we crest this hill, we decided to put some watts down and get over the hill as much as we can, as fast as we can, and then approach the descent. Now at this point I should have really kept the watts going and kept it going high, used that stupid ghost to get another power up and hope for an aero for the downhill, but I was so tired at that point that I had to take a bit of a rest. Used my ghost too late, so I didn't get another power up. So as I hit the descent, I looked to get as much power down as possible, try and carry as much speed, using the aero tuck, and try to catch the groups in front. They're only 17 seconds ahead, 19, 17 seconds. I figured that powering down the descent as much as possible and just hitting those undulating areas and powering up and over, and I might be able to bridge that gap by the time I get to the bottom. The hope was that a couple of the guys that I've just passed, like Graham and the other two guys, would be on my tail and would be able to draft a little bit and get a bit more speed going down the hill. But unfortunately, as I got to the bottom of the hill, I was alone. So I made the decision that, looking at the time gap, with 22 seconds ahead, and I gapped the rest of the riders that I was using up the hill by 12 seconds, that riding alone was just going to burn too many matches. So I decided to dial it back and wait for the guys who I was working with previously and see if we could bridge that gap to the guys in front. So just after I was caught by Graham and the Polish rider that I was working with up the hill, there was a smaller group of riders behind them who managed to catch us as well, so that created a nice little group of about 8 riders that we could work together with and look to really work hard to catch the guys in front. So as we approach our second climb, the group start to thin out a little bit. Polish rider ahead, really pushing on and trying to gap us, work on his own. Graham's dropped off about 30 seconds, but it turns out after the race he spoke to me and he snapped his rear mech. So he's having to do a bit of a bike switch, so that was interesting to see that there. He had to drop off and then get back on it. So, but as we go up the climb, it's good to see that we've got about 4 or 5 riders that are around about the same power output, and just see Jamie coming past in a second on the downhill, which is a bit sickening to see one of your teammates come flying past on the downhill and you've still got all that climb to do. But we plod on and we power through to the crest of the climb. So this time over the crest, I decided that, although I've dropped my watts the same as I did in the first lap, that the plan was to wait for a couple of riders, because it was harder work going down the hill trying to carry speed than it would have been as a group. So the plan was to try and sit with a few riders and carry as much speed as possible and use their draft to get down the hill. However, they didn't have the same idea, so it ended up being me and this guy AJ ploughing down the hill pretty close together, and trying to just keep in touch and distance with the other riders in front. So again, we meet the bottom of the descent, and there's 3 of us who gap the rest of the field, and we've started the next climb just as the 3 of us, and there's 17 seconds, 40 seconds between the guys behind, and 23 seconds to 30 seconds from the groups in front. Noticing that Paul is about a minute ahead now, so it's going to be tricky to catch him. However, the 3 of us seem to be putting out a fair few wattage as we climb the hill, and we start picking off riders as their legs tire and we keep ploughing through. So we managed to take out almost 20 seconds from the small group in front, and as the race carries on, all 3 of us have the same idea, in that we want to be in that top 20, and we push on and we push on past. So as I crest the climb for the final time, I'm catching Sykes and I drop my aero boost just to give me that extra little bit to get past him and onto that flat section just before the descent. So as you can see, AJ's gapped me slightly, but we've passed a number of riders, and my sole aim from now on is to get into that top 20 and get past AJ. So you can see we've caught Paul Birch by about 40 seconds on that climb. So we've worked hard on that final climb, so it's whether or not I've got enough in my legs to get down that descent and really push to catch AJ. So as we descend, I really push on, but it's evident that every time I put some power down, AJ is watching my watts and he puts the same in to match it and really keeps that 5-second gap all the way along. And we get onto the final bit, onto the flat section, and again 4-second gap. I'm pushing and I'm trying to catch him, putting 3.5 watts out per kilo, pushing it up. Every time I do put a little bit of a kick in, AJ puts the same in again, and again we've taken another 10 seconds out of Paul. So both of us, he doesn't want to get caught, I want to catch him. It's working quite well, but he didn't want to leave it to a sprint at the last. And as we got into the final kilometre, he's maintaining that 4-second gap over and over and over, matching my watts. No matter what I put in, he puts in and keeps that gap until we get to the final couple of 100 metres, and I just have absolutely nothing left, and he's taken another 5 seconds out of me, and I just can't keep up anymore. So I've settled 21st place. Really tough ride, and fair play to AJ for watching the wattage and keeping that gap. Enjoyable ride? No. Good ride? Yes. But yeah, really, really good racing, and some really interesting tactics throughout from many different riders. So yeah, bring on next week.